human beings. It is me. We are back from Japan. It was a very intense, very interesting trip. And we're going to be getting straight back into the oddly specific personality type things. And this week we're going to be doing, obviously, the INTJ personality. I did INFJ the week before I left for Japan, so you can check that video out here. And yeah, let's get into the three oddly specific INTJ personality things that if you're an INTJ or you know you're close to an INTJ, I'm sure you're going to understand all too well. Hopefully this illuminates a little bit of the sort of vague, foggy misunderstanding around the INTJ personality type. And yeah, let's get into it. So the first oddly specific thing is that for you as an INTJ, you often feel like people stop short of the best conclusion in a conversation. You feel like people don't actually really think things through to the point where they really make the most sense. Because you as an INTJ are using introverted intuition first, you're using introverted intuition before any other function, there's a sense that you really want to be able to penetrate into a thing and really fully move into what is the cause of this thing. Not just what is the effect, but how did this actually come together? You as an INTJ are a systems thinker. You think very holistically. So you're looking to actually make sense of all of the individual parts, like a big puzzle, and how they all interrelate to one another. And then trace them back to see how the pattern works. So in conversation, for you to really be in flow, for you to really be having the best kind of conversation that you can have, you don't just want to talk about superficial things. You don't just want to talk for 5 minutes about the thing. But for you, you could quite happily drill into the conversation for an hour, for 2 hours, and just really go further into making sense of the thing. But when you're talking to people, you often notice that they don't seem to really be able to do the same thing, or they're not really that interested in really truly understanding the thing. It's like they'll follow it for a bit while it's stimulating, but then they're just going to stop at some point. They're not going to really want to penetrate into the understanding of the thing or the trend, how that thing really came together. And this can be very frustrating because it can feel a lot of the time like you don't really have anyone to talk to who's really going to go there with you. And it often feels like you kind of just have to engage people at their level of conversation so you can get some of that satisfaction of like an actual intellectual, high quality conversation. But you're always stopping short of where you really want to go. And the way I look at NI is a little bit like Mario Kart, how as you start at a certain speed and as you kind of like go through the track, you kind of ramp up and the whole experience becomes more satisfying. And that to me is like how NI wants to have a conversation. There's a sense of as you go deeper and further through the terrain, you're actually picking up on more relevant information that makes the conversation really juicy and really important for the INTJ. So that's the first point. People just don't really seem to be able to go the distance with you in conversation. This can feel it can cause a lot of friction. It can feel very dissatisfying that people don't really seem to trace effects right back to the cause, because that's what you want to do most. The second oddly specific thing for you as an INTJ is that you want to envision and contemplate, sort of like see into the future of possibilities just for the sake of it. And this can be very misunderstood. This can make you as an INTJ feel very misunderstood because if you look at the common descriptions for the INTJ personality type, there's kind of like always this idea of like, they're like an architect, mastermind, super thinker. And it's like, yes, like you as an INTJ, you do have TE in that second slot. You do have the ability to actualize and realize all your visions. But being compared to Jeff Bezos every time can give you kind of like a sense of imposter syndrome in a way, a lot of the time, I think, for INTJs. Because for you, it's not about achieving the thing first. Achieving the thing is a really important element of your process, because once you actually understand the path forward and you understand the vision, of course you actually want to see it be realized in reality. But for you as an INTJ, the primary thing is that you love to envision and contemplate just for the sake of it. And this relates to the last point that we're talking about there. In the conversation, you actually want to just be able to trace things back and see the path forward. You want to be able to connect to the thing deeply and just make sense of it in your mind. And it can often be misunderstood because people can think that you're constantly like scheming or trying to always get something accomplished. And that's because the function that you're extroverting is your thinking, right? Your extroverted thinking is what other people can see. They can't really seem to tune into the NI as much because it's more of a personalized introverted function. But you often feel like you're misunderstood in that you actually just want to dive into and contemplate something just for its own sake. You love to envision for the sake of envisioning. It's not necessarily always just to get something accomplished. Some things pass on to the extroverted thinking, but with that secondary or that parental function, it's usually something that you develop over time. It's not just like, oh, okay, it's your second function, so you use it just below your other one. It's like, no. The secondary function you develop over time. Most people are usually using their first and third functions more readily. So for you as an INTJ, it can just feel really satisfying to envision for the sake of it, and you're doing that a lot. And I feel like that can cause a bit of a imposter syndrome or a misunderstanding for the INTJ there. So that's the second one. So the third and final thing I've got for you here is that for you as an INTJ, your holistic thinking, your sort of like in-depth wanting to really get to the truth behind the thing and wanting to better understand the thing can often be misunderstood as kind of like insensitivity and cruelty in certain situations. And I think the reason that this happens is because sometimes when people bring problems to you, when people are actually expressing emotion to you, when they're actually going through a hard time, what they kind of want, what we kind of want from one another sometimes is we just want some like effy, like extroverted feeling. We want this like sense of being coddled, and we want this sense of like just support for the sake of it. Like we don't necessarily feel like we need to have the thing solved. We don't necessarily feel like we need to have a better understanding of it. But for you as an INTJ, the thing that's going to make most sense when someone brings a problem to you is that you're going to be looking at, how did this actually come to be? What are you really believing right now? Or you're tracing back the steps. Again, you're peeling back the layers because you instinctually understand that that is going to be the best way of helping this person. And then second to that, usually what you're extroverting to the person is your sense of extroverted thinking. So you're looking at what can be done about this. How can we actually move forward? What is the practical steps that we can take? And extroverted thinking is in that second or parental function. So there is a sense of like, that is how you're going to be giving guidance and offering guidance. And in the right situation, that seems like a great thing. But sometimes in relationships, people just kind of want that extroverted feeling and that kind of being what feels a bit like emotionally coddled and just understanding for the sake of it. They don't necessarily want you to peel back the layers and then also give them practical steps of how they're going to actually decompartmentalize and then take action on improving the situation. And I think that that makes sense, but it can also be misunderstood quite a lot with INTJs, because you as an INTJ, you actually are being sensitive to the situation. You providing a better level of understanding about the situation, and you actually trying to provide steps to how you could rectify an issue. This to you is actually giving a lot of help. This to you is being caring. It is adding assistance. But it often gets taken like as if you're cold or you're alien or you're not really able to connect with what's going on for the other person. And I think this can be really challenging for you as an INTJ. Because in you, it's like, can they not actually just think about the fact that I'm actually trying to help them better understand what's going on here? I'm trying to give them the things that are going to help in the situation. But again, it's not that isn't useful. It's just that sometimes there is a sense of just kind of wanting to be understood for the sake of it. And I think for you as an INTJ, this doesn't come as naturally a lot of the time. That's not to say that you can't empathize with that FI. You can't tune in and just understand that that is what's wanted. And especially if you're a more mature INTJ, you probably do understand that that is what people want a lot of the time. But I do think sometimes there can be a sense of feeling frustrated with the speed at which some people work through these difficulties, because you actually just see the path forward really quickly and really naturally, and you see what can be done about it naturally. So that's the third thing. It's the sense of being misunderstood when you're actually trying to help people and add value to people. It can be misunderstood that you're like some robot who's not really accepting their emotions or validating their emotions at the time. Okay, so that is 3 oddly specific INTJ things. I will be finishing the full INTJ video this coming week, so hopefully it'll be out in the middle of the week, maybe Thursday-ish. And until then, I hope you really enjoyed this. Hope you got value out of it. If you did, I really appreciate you subscribing, helping me build up the channel, liking the video, sharing this to anyone you feel like would get value out of it. And yeah, recently we just hit over 1,000 subscribers. So like, thank you so much for all the new subscribers, everyone who's coming in. I really appreciate it, and it was really amazing to actually hit that 1,000 subscribers while I was like on the intersection between Brunei and Australia. So it was just like opening up my phone after being on flight mode, and it was like, oh my god, like we're at 1,000 people. So yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. I hope you're having a beautiful day, and I'll see you very soon for the full INTJ video. So see you.